This content is not suitable for children and may contain depictions of violence.
Hi Islanders, grab a beer and pull up a deck chair. This is True Crime Island, another true crime podcast. Well, the world is really going crazy at the moment, so I hope you'll stay as safe as you can. We've got a lot to get through today. There's no fancy green screen either. We've got the Bumfuckalunga beach towel and an old True Crime Island t-shirt there, a bit of merch, so that's what we've got as a backdrop to this awful case. And this week, we have the case of uxoricide, or the killing of one's wife. We go to the suburb of Brookfield. Now, that's about a 25-minute drive west of Brisbane in Queensland, Australia. Now, I'll be referencing the Allison Baden-Clay Foundation, the Calgary Herald, the Daily Mail, the Brisbane Times, Court Records, Queensland's judgments.com.au, battleofwills.com.au, ruleoflaw.com.au, the Queensland Times, news.com.au. We got a clip here from Channel 9. All right, so it's the 20th of April 2012 and 43-year-old Allison Baden-Clay has gone missing. Now, Allison was born on the 1st of July in 1962 in Corinda, Queensland. A university graduate who spoke 6 languages, she was warm, talented and intelligent. Her passion was ballet and she lit up the stage when she danced. When Allison was 10 years old, she toured the UK, including the Edinburgh Festival with the Australian Youth Ballet. She then went to Scandinavia on a Rotary exchange program, then graduated from the University of Queensland. She then started working as a consultant at Flight Centre in Brisbane. She was very successful and became manager of the Ipswich Flight Centre branch. Allison was actually crowned Miss Brisbane in 1993 and was named Ipswich Young Businesswoman of the Year. Allison then returned to Brisbane to become manager for human resources at Flight Centre. Then she was promoted to global human resources manager, and she was responsible for more than 3,000 employees worldwide. Now, around this time, Allison met this guy, Gerard Baden-Clay. He was also working at Flight Centre as a travel consultant, and that was for the first 24-hour division, and he was managing his own outlet. They hit it off and would eventually marry in 1997, and they had their honeymoon overseas, which turned into a bit of a working holiday thanks to Flight Centre. Now, Flight Centre called them back to Australia. Now, Allison was taking the role of staff recruiter and trainer, and Gerard found some work there as well. Now, Gerard Baden-Clay, he was born September the 9th, 1970, in Bournemouth, England. When he was about 1 year old, his family moved to Rhodesia, or Zimbabwe as it's known now, and then his family moved to Australia in 1980. Gerard went to the Darling Downs Institute of Advanced Education, or University of Southern Queensland as it's now known, getting a Bachelor of Business. Gerard then worked as an accountant in the audit division of KPMG Pete Marwick, and then as a company accountant for designer workwear. From 1994 to 97, he worked at Flight Centre, initially as a travel consultant, like I said, for the first 24-hour division, and he was managing his own outlet there. Now, later he worked as an office and recruitment systems manager. Now, as we know, this is where Allison and Gerard met. They got married in 97, they honeymooned and worked overseas, then back to Australia to continue their work for Flight Centre. In 2000, Gerard was sacked from Flight Centre after the section he was working in was dissolved. Now, he wasn't happy about this at all, and he did try to sue for damages. He then started working at Rain and Horn at Kenmore for about 10 months. In late 2003, Gerard studied for his real estate licence, which he obtained in early 2004. Now, Allison would put her career on hold at this time to raise 1, then 2, and ultimately 3 lovely daughters. Look, she did start to suffer a little bit from depression, but that was linked to the malaria tablets she'd taken while travelling. She sought medical advice and was on medication, so there was no actual depression at the time this story's set. Gerard then started as principal and managing director of Century 21 at Westside. Now, from what I can gather, he used his parents' money to set the place up, and they both worked with him, that's his parents, at the start, but ultimately they retired. Now, Gerard then brought in other partners. It was going well at one time, but he'd sort of cooked the books when bringing on the other partners, and without his very talented parents, things started to go downhill. He remained there until 2012, and that's when we get into what this case is all about. Now, before I go any further, Gerard Baden-Clay was descended from Robert Baden-Powell of the Scout movement fame. Well, founder. Gerard wouldn't miss an opportunity to tell you this when you met him, and he used it all the time to make himself more important than he was, and he always wanted to be the centre of attention. He always had grand plans, but never seemed to reach his goals. He was confident, but quite a lot of people thought he was up himself. And even Allison's friends didn't like him. But they said she was in love, so what do? Love's blind. In 2012, the Baden-Clays, Gerard, Allison and their 3 kids aged 5, 8 and 10, they went to live at 593 Brookfield Road, Brookfield, Queensland. Now, it was what the real estate agent would call the worst house in the best street. Well, it was a very affluent suburb at least, but the house they rented was nowhere near the best house in the area, but rent was cheap. You see, at this time, Gerard was having an affair, and he was also having financial issues with the real estate business, especially after recent floods in the area. His partners wanted out of the business because they couldn't trust him, and they gave him time to pay them off to buy them out of the business. Now, Allison had been brought into the business as a cost-effective way to help out, and she was starting to do very, very well. Look who I found! Just jumped out of this box. Hey, babe. Say hello to everybody. Meow, meow. Okay, back to the story. Okay, off you go. That's Bubby. So, Allison's started to work in the business. She's doing very well. But the whole business is having a few issues. Now, Gerard, he's having this affair that he started in August 2008, and that commenced with Tony McHugh, one of his employees. Now, Allison found out about the affair in September 2011. Tony McHugh said that Gerard regularly expressed his intention of leaving his wife, but was concerned for her mental health and, in turn, the consequences for their daughter's welfare if he did so. Now, when Allison found out about the affair, Gerard called Tony McHugh into the office, told her it was over, and oh, by the way, you're sacked. You can't work here anymore. Nice guy. Now, she tried to contact Gerard to talk it over, but she gave up when he didn't respond, So, for years, Gerard had strung Tony along, telling her he loved her and one day he would leave Allison and they'd be married. Now, don't think Tony was a homewrecker. Look, she was married at the time, but her relationship had broken down. Gerard had comforted her at the time, and that's 2008, and he told her that his relationship was on the rocks as well. So he was married, but to Tony, he was already ready to move on. Now, when Allison found out about the affair, this is 2011, she organised for counselling where they reached an agreement that Gerard would show his commitment to her by not going out at night without her approval and by giving her the password for his phone so that she could check his texts, emails and call history. We know you can delete those. But anyway, in December 2011, only a couple of months after breaking the affair off, Gerard contacted Toni McHugh and asked to meet her. Now, when they met, he told her that he loved her and wanted to end his marriage. They then kept in contact by way of very brief phone calls and email through an account under a different name. They met again on another occasion before the beginning of April 2012. Here, Gerard told Toni that he would be out of his marriage by the 1st of July 2012, but said that they shouldn't meet until that occurred. Now, they remained in regular email and telephone contact all this time, and in an email on the 3rd of April 2012, he gave Toni a commitment to which he intended to stick and that he would be separated from Allison by the 1st of July. Now, given his history, Toni did not believe him at all. He wrote another email to Toni on the 11th of April, told how much he loved her. Now, he said this 3 times in this one email. I mean, okay, this guy's really a narcissistic creep. So let's have a little recap of what's happened so far. Yep, he got busted for the affair he was having, but he had no qualms in sacking Toni to get her out of the office. A couple of months later, he starts sniffing around for a bit more action now that the initial heat from Allison has died down. So he wants his family, his beautiful wife, that outward look of success, but still wants his grubby little affair on the side. And he did treat Toni just as a side chick. He strung her along with lies year after year to maintain this affair. Now, yes, Allison could have left Gerard, but she was focused on her 3 daughters and wouldn't entertain a divorce. It could have been the constant gaslighting that she got from Gerard that she felt that even though it wasn't the best situation to be in, maybe it could be fixed with a bit of counselling. Now, Gerard had promised to end the affair and do the right thing by his family, but Gerard, although being emotionally abusive, he wasn't physically abusive. But my thoughts? Gerard's a fucking wanker. He's just a dickhead. Anyway, on the 19th of April 2012, Toni McHugh telephoned Gerard and told him she was going to a property management conference the following day. Now, Gerard told her that Allison and another employee of the real estate agency would be attending the same conference. 2 worlds colliding. Now, Toni was pissed off, saying that he should tell Allison about their relationship, that it was not fair to either of them that they should be in the same room together, as you can imagine. She demanded to know his intentions, so she started to stand up for herself. Now, he said that he was thinking of selling the business after he left Allison, and he didn't respond to her request to see him after that. So now we get to the 20th of April 2012. Allison has this real estate conference to attend in the city, but she's not in the house when her kids get up to get ready for school. Instead, Gerard, he gets them ready. He has marks on the left side of his face, which his kids ask him about. Now, he tells them he cut himself shaving because he's rushing to get them ready for school, and one of the kids, Sarah, puts a Band-Aid on the cut. At 6:30 a.m, Gerard calls his father to tell him Allison had gone for a walk and she hadn't returned. His father and his sister drove over to the Brookfield Road house. Now, at about 7 a.m, Gerard drove away from the house saying that he was going to look for his wife. At 7:15 a.m, Gerard made a 000 call telling the operator that his wife had gone out for a walk and she hadn't come back. Now, a Constable Ash, he arrived at 593 Brookfield Road at about 8 a.m. on this Friday morning. Now, Gerard told Ash that Allison had gone for a morning walk. She used to do this quite early, 5 a.m, and had not returned, and that he'd last seen her about 10 p.m. the night before, and that she had fallen asleep on the couch while watching the footy show. Now, Ash noticed the marks on Gerard's face. He couldn't avoid these things. He said that he had cut himself shaving that morning because he was in a hurry trying to prepare the girls for school, get them dressed and breakfasted. Is that a word? Breakfasted. Ash looked through the house. He didn't see any blood or sign of a struggle. In fact, the marital bed was made and the house seemed pretty much spotless. Ash looked for Allison's mobile phone. He didn't find it. Now, they had a couple of cars, and in the Craptiva, one of the two cars the family had, and that they'd only just bought, it was only a couple of months old, Ash found an empty box of medication prescribed for Allison. I think it's Zolox, one of those. Now, several police would interview him that morning. This is Gerard. They all saw the marks on the side of his face, and he told them it was a shaving cut. But they all pretty much straight away thought it looked like scratch marks from fingernails. Now, the property was declared a crime scene, and this was done pretty quickly. Now, the police on site at Brookfield Road, they felt that while Gerard was answering questions, he was sort of holding things back. Tony McHugh, she happened to call Gerard, and he told her that Allison had gone missing and they shouldn't be communicating. Now, the next day, he told Tony that the police would want to speak with her and she should tell the truth. He's actually admitted to the cops he's having an affair. Now, police would put out a public appeal for Allison, noting that she was wearing grey tracksuit pants and a dark top. Now, these scratch marks on his face, well, anyone who saw them, including family, friends, doctors, police, whoever, they really didn't think they were razor cuts from shaving. They just didn't look like that at all. Now, at 8:30 a.m. on the 21st of April, Gerard went to a local medical centre where he asked a Dr. Bevan to look at the cuts on his face. He told Dr. Bevan at least 3 times that he'd been in a rush while shaving and had cut his face. Why do you tell someone 3 times? This is where you're starting to make a narrative. Anyway, at 4 p.m. that day, he then saw a Dr. Kumar at a different medical centre. He told Dr. Kumar that he had scratched himself with an old razor, causing his facial injuries. Then at 7:15 p.m. the next day, 22nd of April, a forensic medical officer, Dr. Griffiths, examined the injuries to Gerard's face, and Dr. Griffiths noticed that the injuries resembled fingernail scratches. He estimated that the injuries were at least 48 hours old, if not older. Now, as we get through this case, these scratches will be quite important. Also, it would be found later that there were abrasions and scratches on Gerard's chest. These resembled scratch marks and could have been caused by fingernail scratching. He also had a shoulder injury which looked like it had come about by the friction of clothes being rubbed hard against the skin. Somebody tugging on it. Stop tugging on it. Now, police will do a forensic search of the house and the 2 cars. The Craptiva that the Baden-Clays, like I said, had purchased just a short time before, just a couple of months. That had bloodstains on the driver's side rear wheel cowling in the 3rd row of seats. Now, luminol was used to see if it was blood because it did look like a drink stain from the kids. It would be found to not only be blood, but it was Allison's blood. However, it was not possible to say how old the bloodstain was. But, being a brand new car, it couldn't have been that old. By the 23rd, Allison is still not found, and police set up a major incident room at Indooroopilly Police Station. Did I say that right? Indooroopilly? Priscilla and Jeff Dickey, that's Allison's parents, they appealed to the public to help find their daughter. Allison's father, Jeff Dickey, said, "We are overwhelmed by the support in trying to locate Allison. Please help us because they're 3 beautiful little girls wanting to see their mother as soon as possible." Now, police told reporters that they were treating the disappearance as a missing persons case, not a criminal investigation. Now, you're right. I think they already know Gerard did it. They just got to prove this sort of thing. So on the 24th of April, Allison is still nowhere to be found and Gerard finally makes a public statement. Now, I'll play this clip from 9 News. I told everyone on the audio channel we'll play the whole clip here rather than just a little cut. So here we go.
The husband of a woman who mysteriously disappeared from her Kenmore home last Thursday night has broken his silence to 9 News.
The hunt for Allison Baden-Clay has intensified, with police now searching industrial garbage bins for evidence.
Coming out of his parents' home, the pain and strain of the last 5 days was clear to see across Gerard Baden-Clay's face.
I'm trying to look after my children at the moment. They've got 3 young girls, and we really trust that the police are doing everything they can to find my wife, and we just hope that she'll come home soon.
9 News understands Mr Baden-Clay has hired lawyers and has been in regular contact with detectives.
I've spoken to the police about everything, and I've had no contact from her at all.
Allison disappeared last Thursday night and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Her mobile phone is also missing and her bank account has been untouched.
Was she upset before she went away?
No, and the police, I've tried to help the police as much as I can, and we all have, and everything we've got, so thank you, I'm sorry.
The family car has been impounded and is undergoing scientific examination. But Mr Baden-Clay was behind the wheel of a friend's car when he lost control of it on Sunday, crashing into a pole outside the Indooroopilly shopping centre. The well-known real estate agent spent time in hospital.
I was hurt a little bit, but I'm okay.
The search for Allison has now intensified around Brookfield and expanded to include Kenmore Hills, Pullen Vale and Bellbowrie. Property owners have again been asked to check their own land.
We just appeal to the public to please help us in any way that they can.
It's not just bushland near the family's home police have been searching. They've moved into shopping centres, searching industrial bins for any evidence the mother of 3 has been murdered.
We've got such great family support, my sister and my family here, and they're looking after her.
We need to find her.
Now, police remain optimistic and are still officially treating this as a missing persons case. However, they'll be out in force tomorrow searching again, despite it being a public holiday. And more than 100 officers and SES will be scouring the area then.
Alicia, thank
Oh my God. Do you think he's guilty already? Listen to his voice. He's pretending, trying to cry. And now, there's absolutely no Oscar for that performance. And apparently it's the only media interview he gives. He got doorstopped by Channel 9 too. He didn't have much choice about it other than hide in the house. Now, I don't think it's a spoiler because I think you all know where this case is heading. But this grieving husband bullshit reminds me of Chris Watts. Now, in the video, you can see his body language. If you're watching the clip, you don't have to watch it closely. Let me know in the comments what you think, guilty or not. Now, on the 25th, detectives raid the office of Gerard's real estate agency and they gather more evidence from his house. Now, Allison is still nowhere to be found and there is a prayer vigil at the local church for her. On the 27th, police place a mannequin outside the family home wearing what is believed to be the clothing similar to what Allison was wearing when she went missing. That's the tracky dacks in the top. Now, really, to tell you the truth, I think the cops put it there to freak Gerard out, make him squirm a little, make him feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now, other than the initial search in his car on the morning that Allison went missing, Gerard has not searched for his wife since. Now, search crews widen the area that they're looking for Allison. They start to look in industrial dumpsters, as you heard on that clip. On the 28th of April, a week since Allison went missing, Gerard issues a statement to the media. He doesn't do it on video. He thanks the public for their support, saying his priority is the welfare of his wife and their 3 daughters. Now, on the 30th of April, a canoeist discovers a woman's body on the creek bank under Colo Bridge crossing at Anstead. That's about 14 kilometres from the family home. The body is wearing what Allison was thought to have worn the morning she went missing, and the body is on the muddy bank and is quite decomposed. On the 1st of May, this body is formally identified as that of Allison Baden-Clay. The family are devastated, and the police are treating it now as a homicide. Now, the police will say, at this stage, we're looking at an unlawful homicide investigation. We've been looking at that for some time now, as I said. We believe it has reached that level some time ago. They knew straight away, day one. Yeah, look, Gerard, he says he's devastated by the loss of his wife. In a statement released by his lawyer, Gerard says his primary concern now is the care of his 3 daughters, and he just wants to provide his children with some stability and normality, giving the tragic news and despite the unrelenting media barrage which he hasn't been part of. I don't know. An autopsy will be performed. The results will come back. And it was performed by Dr. Milne. He couldn't determine a cause of death because of the effects of decomposition. But certain observations he made were suggestive of blunt force trauma. The autopsy report identified possible causes of death which could not be excluded. Now, these included smothering and strangulation. Dr. Milne could put these no higher than possibilities because any soft tissue injuries that may have been sustained to the face or neck would have been destroyed or obscured by decomposition and other post-mortem changes. About a week or so later, police set up roadblocks in the area to try to find out more information and probably to try to see if anyone saw Allison walking on the morning she went missing. Yeah, I think they're trying to prove Allison didn't go walking that morning, especially 14 kilometres, because Allison was known to be suffering from depression or at least taking medication for it. They're trying to rule out any suggestion of suicide. Now, Allison had her funeral service on the 11th of May at St Paul's Anglican Church at Ipswich. Gerard was there, acting all devastated, but he failed to address the mourners. I mean, what the fuck? On June the 13th, Gerard is interviewed at Indooroopilly Police Station for several hours. Eventually, he would be charged with murder and interfering with a corpse. He says he's innocent and will defend the charges, but he's denied bail as he is a flight risk. So now, it's been about 2 months since Allison went missing. Her friends knew something was wrong with Gerard. They knew he had something to do with it. For sure, they hated him anyway. But how would you be comforting this prick for those couple of months to find out he's now charged with her murder? I know at this stage he is innocent until proven guilty and has denied he killed her, but if you're a close family member, parent or sibling, and you were standing by him, what must be going through your mind at this stage? And I'm sure, related or not, there was a doubt in some of their minds. So at the trial, the prosecution presented a motive and a lot of circumstantial evidence as well as normal evidence, real evidence, actual evidence. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. The motive to kill his wife was that he was in financial troubles, and not only did he owe a lot of money, but Allison had 2 life insurance policies amounting to $800,000. The other motive was that he'd promised his lover, Tony McHugh, that he would be out of his marriage by the 1st of July 2012. But you don't need to prove motive to prove murder. But they were both very strong reasons why you would kill your wife. Now, I'll go through some of the evidence that was presented at the trial. Now, first, we've got these scratch marks on his face. Now, there was so much legal arguing over this point, and several expert witnesses on how they came to be, what they could be, could not be. Now, most of the doctors that saw the injuries, they thought they were probably scratch marks and not made by a razor. Now, still, they weren't saying 100% sure, but it was the most likely cause. The same with the scratches on his chest. There were also the marks on his shoulder, the ones that looked like they'd been made by fabric rubbed hard against the skin, like a carpet burn. Now, like I thought, probably from Allison grabbing his shirt while trying to defend herself. Now, there was also this fact. The police could detect Gerard had plugged his mobile phone into its charger at 1:38 a.m. Now, he claimed that all night he was in a super deep sleep. So, sleepwalking? Now, Gerard also, he lived a double life. For 3 years he deceived, and he has confidence in his capacity to deceive. So basically he's a liar, and he thinks he's pretty good at pulling the wool over other people's eyes. Allison was also found 14 kilometres from her house, and that's a long walk. She was a reluctant exerciser. No one saw her along the route, and there was no suggestion that she was taking there taken there by someone other than her husband. Now, she also had plans to meet her colleague at the conference at 8 a.m. in the morning and had organised to drop off ballerina dresses that she'd borrowed from a friend's months before. Now, she was going to do this after the conference, so she's making all these plans for that day. Now, where her body was found was well known to Gerard. He'd sold houses there in that area, and there was quite a lot of room to park a car there at night. It's quite dark also, no streetlights. There was no evidence that she was drug affected on that morning, and she didn't fall from the bridge intentionally or otherwise. Now, if she'd fallen from the bridge, she would have sustained fractures. There was none. Now, it was more likely she was rolled or pushed from the ledge above where she was found. Now, without going into too much detail of the types of flora found on her and in her body, basically, what was found was also found at her home, but none of it was found at the site where her body was located or along that route. So, what they were saying is that he's probably dragged her out the back. She's got leaves and stuff in her hair. That's all got caught up, leaves, sticks and all that sort of shit. But along the route and at the destination, there's none of that at all. So the only time she's been able to get that is at her house. Now, if you're going to get sticks and shit like that in your hair, you're thinking you're walking along, leaves fall down into your hair, you'll get something from a tree that is along the route. So that was another thing. Also, this analysis found out that she hadn't drowned because she would have had some of the flora inside her. The bruise to Allison's chest and her chipped tooth were consistent with a struggle. There was no suggestion from staff at the business that they saw signs of depression. Allison also had 3 school-aged children and was deeply involved in their lives. She was also engaged in building the business and to making plans for its future. So there's no reason for suicide here. She's making plans, not only the day she went missing or was murdered, but the future. She was also excited about going to this real estate conference on the Friday. Now, when police first inspected the Craptiva, the back row of seats were folded down and toys positioned there. Now, Allison's blood was hidden from view, but once you move these toys, pull up the seat, you could see it there on the side. Now, that's probably why the box of toys was put there by Gerard, hoping police wouldn't look. Now, that's my view, and that's pretty much what happened. There had been no injury to Allison before the 19th of April to account for the blood in the car. So therefore, there was an injury to Allison on that night that caused her to bleed. Then there was the real prospect of his affair with Tony McHugh being exposed to Allison at the conference the next day and her being unwilling to forgive him a second time. Now, Gerard would ultimately be found guilty. Now, the judge summed up the case, and as usual, I'll just paraphrase what he said, but pretty much it's all here. The killing was not premeditated, but it was violent and that Gerard was under considerable stress. His financial and domestic circumstances were in bad shape. He resumed his affair with Tony McHugh, and he led her to believe he was going to leave Allison and to be with her. The afternoon before the murder, he told Tony that Allison would be at the conference she was to attend in Brisbane the next day, and if the two women were to meet, the consequences could have been dramatic. I reckon so too. A relationship counsellor had devised a plan to get the marriage back on track. It allowed for Allison to express her feelings about the affair in a brief session every second day, and Gerard had reluctantly agreed to it. Now, the first session had happened the night before Allison died, and it had turned into an interrogation. Allison remained tormented by the affair, pressing him for details. On the night she died, Allison again questioned him about the affair, and all the pressures proved too much. The prosecution suggested that Gerard smothered Allison, and that looks likely. But whatever the mechanism, his violent attack caused her death. Her fingernails scratched his face, the act of a desperate woman struggling for life. He then continued his shameful conduct after murdering Allison, showing a profound absence of remorse. He then took her body to Colo Creek. There he disposed of Allison in an undignified way, dumping her over a ledge to leave her lying in mud, exposed to the elements, insects and wildlife. He then put in place and persisted in a deception plan. He used a razor to cut himself near where she had scratched him, trying to disguise the injuries she had inflicted in defending herself. He then drove around the streets of Brookfield pretending to look for her. He then insinuated that mental illness may have led to a drug overdose or suicide, and besmirching Allison's memory in that way is thoroughly reprehensible. The judge said that Gerard had no criminal history, but he was definitely not of good character, and that he took a devoted, loving mother from her 3 girls, blighting their lives. So on the 15th of July 2014, Gerard Baden-Clay was found guilty of murdering his wife Allison, and he was given a life sentence with a non-parole period of 15 years. Now, the charge of interfering with a corpse, well, that was dropped. Now, in 2015, Gerard appealed his conviction of murder. That's everyone's right. It was downgraded to manslaughter. Now, this caused an uproar, a rage, a Cambo rage of sorts in the whole community. And in 2016, the Queensland Director of Public Prosecutions decided to appeal against the downgrade, thank God. And in the High Court of Australia, well, they restored the original trial murder conviction. Now, without going into all the legal jargon and why the murder conviction was reinstated, basically, Gerard said he had no part in the death of Allison. Now, if he'd come clean and said they had a fight, she bumped her head or whatever caused her death, well, that could have been seen as not intentional and a manslaughter finding could have been made. But no, this narcissistic lying wanker, he fucked himself up a little bit here. He should have just admitted it. He was just a nobody, a failure, a disgrace to his family. His actions left 3 young girls without parents, especially their loving mum. And all for what? Life in prison? And by the way, he can't get any of Allison's estate. There is the Allison Baden-Clay Foundation that's been set up in her honour. The foundation aims to build a national community that acknowledges the prevalence of domestic and family violence and seeks to create an Australia that is committed to eliminating and taking concrete action to stop domestic and family violence. So please have a look. Go to AllisonBadenclayFoundation.org.au and check it out. Well, Islanders, another precious life is taken away in a narcissistic rage. So that's the end of another episode. Now, if you want to support the island, there's links in the description for Patreon, PayPal and merch. Please feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and I would truly appreciate it if you share the channel. Hit the bell to be notified because I don't bleep out the swearing and I use words like murder and fuck and all this sort of stuff. YouTube gods won't promote the channel. So your subscription and sharing are really appreciated in getting more people on the island. Now, I will be running a 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So when we get to 1,000, probably a t-shirt, something like this, and it will be open to all subscribers. Well, that's it. I've been your host, Cambo. You've been watching True Crime Island, and as I always say, don't forget to delete your browser history. Good night. Boom fuckalunga. What do you reckon, Bubby? Good night. Meow meow. Meow. Okay.